Oscar Piastri's title challenge took another hit yesterday in Brazil, where a 10-second penalty left him finishing fifth while teammate Lando Norris won from pole position. The gap between the two McLaren drivers is now 24 points with 3 races left, and what's becoming clear is that Piastri's problems go way deeper than just one bad weekend at Interlagos. The Australian hasn't finished on the podium since early September, and his recent form has been so poor that even a burger restaurant back home in Australia had to change their promotion. Grilled Healthy Burgers has an Oscar Piastri burger on the menu, and they were giving away free burgers every time he got a podium finish. Since they announced that deal after the Italian Grand Prix, Piastri hasn't been on the podium once, so they've had to change it to just giving away burgers when he competes in a race. It's a funny story, but it shows just how much his form has dropped off lately. So what's actually going wrong for Piastri, and can he turn it around before the season ends in 3 weeks? The simple answer is that he's struggling to adapt to a totally different way of driving the car, and time is running out for him to figure it out. His manager, Mark Webber, has been trying to help behind the scenes, reminding Piastri that fighting for a championship in your 3rd year is really rare, with only Lewis Hamilton doing it this early in his career. Webber was at the race in Brazil and spoke about how he's been supporting Piastri through this tough period, saying, "Of course, it's a journey for him. Obviously, it's been an incredible journey so early in his career to be fighting for a world title." The former Red Bull driver also pointed out that when he was fighting for championships, he was much older and near the end of his career, while Piastri is still learning and has plenty of time ahead of him. Webber's approach has been to put an arm around him, encouragement here and there, which is probably what Piastri needs right now as the pressure keeps building. But here's the thing, all the encouragement in the world doesn't help if you can't get the car to do what you want it to do, and that's been Piastri's biggest problem over the last month. McLaren team boss Andrea Stella has explained that the low grip conditions they've had at the last few races require a completely different driving style, and it's something that comes naturally to Norris but not to Piastri. Some of the techniques required to drive the car fast, they resemble a bit the techniques that were required in Austin and Mexico. So like Oscar is sort of learning this technique, embedding this technique, but it may take a bit more time. What Stella is basically saying is that the way Piastri has been driving all season, which worked really well when he was winning races in Monaco and the Netherlands, suddenly doesn't work anymore when there's less grip on the track. He needs to slide the car more and handle it differently, and that's not something you can just switch on overnight. Piastri himself admitted after the race that it's kind of one thing adapting to different conditions, but when the way you've driven for the whole season has worked so well, it's kind of difficult to go away from that. The Brazil weekend was especially tough because there were some weird things going on with the track itself that made everything even harder. The organisers had cut drainage grooves into the surface after last year's wet race, and these grooves were causing all sorts of problems. When the cars ran over them, the tyres had less contact with the track, which meant more sliding and faster tyre wear, but it also created issues with how low the teams could run their cars because the grooves were wearing down the plank underneath the car too quickly. McLaren found out after the sprint race that they had to raise their ride height to stop the plank from wearing too much, which would have got them disqualified. But raising the car means less downforce, which means less grip, which is exactly what Piastri was already struggling with. He said after the race that the car kind of went in a direction that I wasn't a big fan of, and you can hear the frustration in that comment. Yesterday's race really showed all of Piastri's problems coming together at once. On lap 9, after a safety car restart, he tried to pass Mercedes rookie Kimi Antonelli for 2nd place going into turn 1. It was an aggressive move, the kind you'd expect from someone fighting for a championship, but he locked up the brakes and made contact that sent Antonelli spinning into Charles Leclerc's Ferrari. Leclerc was out on the spot with broken suspension, and Piastri got a 10-second penalty that basically ended his race. Now what's interesting is how Piastri defended himself after the race, refusing to back down from the move. He said, "I got a really good safety car restart and went to the inside. I put myself up the inside pretty comfortably. and there was obviously a bit of a lock-up, but I couldn't go any further left than I already was. I can't really just disappear. He made it clear that he doesn't think he did anything wrong, adding, "The decision is what it is. It was one of a number of difficult moments through today and this weekend, but I wouldn't have done anything differently if I had another chance." That fighting spirit is good to see, and even Leclerc, who lost the most from the crash, said it wasn't all Piastri's fault and that Antonelli could have given him more room. But the problem is that being brave and aggressive isn't enough when you're finishing fifth every weekend and your teammate is winning races. Piastri needs results, not just good intentions, and the clock is ticking. What makes this whole situation more worrying is what Piastri said about the championship after the race. When asked about where he stands, he gave a really telling answer by saying, "I think in terms of the championship, there's no point thinking about it very much. There's clearly some things we need to sort out. Just a tough weekend from a number of fronts, so I'll focus on that instead." That phrase, "things we need to sort out," sounds like there are problems that go beyond just learning a new driving style. At the same time, Piastri hasn't completely given up, saying, "I've still got the belief I can go out and win races and win the championship, but things are not coming as easy as I'd like at the moment." It's the kind of thing you have to say when you're a racing driver, but the gap between belief and reality is getting bigger every weekend. The next race is Las Vegas in less than 2 weeks, and it's going to be really important for Piastri. It's a street circuit with different conditions to the last few tracks, which might give him a chance to reset and find his speed again. After that comes Qatar with a sprint race, and then the season finale in Abu Dhabi. If Piastri can put together 3 strong weekends and Norris has even one bad result, the championship could come back to life. But that's asking for a lot when you haven't been on the podium since September. The mental side of this battle is also worth thinking about because Piastri went from leading the championship by 34 points in August to being 24 points behind in November. That's a huge swing in just 5 races, and it's the kind of thing that can really mess with your head as a driver. He needs to find a way to keep pushing without getting desperate, to make bold moves but actually pull them off, and to somehow put pressure on a teammate who's driving better than he ever has. For McLaren, this situation is tricky because they want both drivers to do well. Those decisions are going to matter a lot over the next 3 weekends. What's clear is that Piastri's window for winning this championship is closing fast. Las Vegas will probably tell us whether this is still a real fight or if it's basically over. He's got the talent and he's got the car to win races, but he needs to find the answers to his problems right now, not in a few months when he's had time to learn and adapt. Formula One doesn't wait for anyone, and right now it's not waiting for Oscar Piastri. The story of how he went from championship leader to being 24 points behind in such a short time is a reminder of how tough this sport can be. When things are going well, everything feels easy, but when form drops off and the car changes under you, it can all fall apart really quickly. How Piastri responds to this over the next 3 races will tell us a lot about what kind of champion he might become one day, even if this year's title ends up going to his teammate instead.